words matter, and more importantly, definitions matter when it comes to understanding training. This may not seem like a terribly important video, which is like, oh, you already tuned out. But hear me out. The words that we use many times drive bad practice in terms of weight training. And if you're a coach, can cause a lot of confusion. We see this in the research literature as well, especially when it comes to the overarching terms related to lifting weights, resistance training, weightlifting, bodybuilding, powerlifting. Okay, and this is why, let me sell you on the importance of understanding the difference between these meanings. Number one, if you think you're training a certain way for a certain output, but your definition is incorrect, you will get to the wrong place. For example, if you, and I've have clients that will tell me this, they're doing powerlifting. And I say, okay, well, what are you doing? And they say, well, I'm doing powerlifting. In their mind, they're thinking to get stronger, but they're doing a routine that's more akin to just a general physique type of training. And that's fine, but they're not moving to the right direction. So in their mind, they're doing powerlifting because that's what they've associated with being strong, but their actual programming is not a powerlifting program. I've seen the opposite, where people are doing powerlifting programs and questioning why they're not gaining lean mass, why they are not losing weight. They may be getting stronger. In fact, many of them stall out when they do powerlifting, but they're not continuing to see gains. So I'm going to quickly define some of these terms, and as I go through them, you may realize you've been using them incorrectly as well. And if you understand the true definitions of these terms, then you can maybe evaluate, well, that's why I'm not getting anywhere, because I'm defining this as one thing and not really understanding what it's supposed to be about. For example, let's start with the first term, which is the umbrella term, which is resistance training. And you don't hear this very often, but resistance training encompasses anything that involves resistance. So it could be bands, it could be dumbbells, it could be kettlebells, it could be a barbell, it could be even your body weight. You can argue is resistance training. Anything above the knee, if you're doing a squat, is resistance training. Okay, so that's a generic term, resistance training. If you go underneath that, now we have weight training, training with weights. So that seems pretty straightforward, but I've seen this term not used at all when it's appropriate. So weight training just means training with weights. It's not very descriptive. It just means you use weights when you train, okay? Underneath that category now you have strength training. Strength training with the focus of getting stronger. This is a term I see misused many times as well. I'm doing strength training. Well, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing 3 sets of 10. Okay, now that may be strength training initially, but if you think you're strength training and all you keep doing is 3 sets of 10, that is no longer strength training if you're been doing it now for 3 or 4 months. It's going to be you're going to have to move towards heavier loads. That is true strength training. Strength training involves getting stronger and will include, as a priority, lifting heavy things, okay? And so if you think you're strength training and you're not getting stronger, that could be one of the reasons why, is you're really not doing strength training. You're just doing general weight training. Underneath that category of weight training, again, there's some bleeding across, different things like elastic band training stuff. We can incorporate these things, but underneath this kind of general idea of weight training is bodybuilding, and that has 2 different terms as well. Bodybuilding, one word, is the sport of bodybuilding. Like when you talk about a bodybuilder, you're talking about somebody who has a focus more than likely on competition. They want to go and compete in the sport of bodybuilding. That is very different than body space building. You are building your body. That could include cardio. Most people are not bodybuilders. They are bodybuilding with a space in there. Again, and it's like, well, who cares? What's the difference? It's a big difference. That's like saying, I'm going to go to the track and do some work to lose weight, or I'm going to go to the track and try to make it the Olympic Games, a 100-meter sprint. That's a big difference in training focus. And so if you go to the gym to be a bodybuilder, you're probably not thinking about somebody who's going to go try to compete. So if you select a program in your training that is a bodybuilder's, as in somebody who's trying to compete for bodybuilding, if you select that bodybuilder's program or you use that bodybuilder's program, I've seen this many times in personal training, you have a bodybuilder who doesn't understand people who just want to build their bodies and gives them their bodybuilder competition program, and that person gets injured. They can't keep up with the volume, right? They get frustrated. They're not fueling themselves properly. Their nutrition is off because that bodybuilder is a competitive athlete, essentially, and this person's just looking to gain some muscle mass and look good in their jeans, right? That's a different definition. Okay, sometimes it's called body sculpting, but understand there's a difference. There's a big difference. So when you talk about following somebody who's doing a bodybuilding program, that should be a question. What are we talking about? The sport of bodybuilding or bodybuilding with the space in it, okay? When it comes to weightlifting, same problem. Weightlifting is one word. That's the snatch and the clean and jerk. That's a sport, weightlifting. Weightlifting to me, so I've seen this in the research literature. Though I remember this off the top of my head, there was a study on using weightlifting as a means to help people recover from cancer treatment, in particular breast cancer. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. You read the study, and they weren't doing any sort of snatch or clean and jerk. The authors didn't understand, and these were brilliant people, obviously, but they didn't understand the term weightlifting does not mean you go and just lift weights like weight training would be, and akin almost to like a bodybuilding with a space type of training. They were not doing snatch and clean and jerk. And so weightlifting is snatch and clean and jerk. That's a sport, one word. Okay, and now because this has been so confusing, we've seen people add things like Olympic weightlifting. Well, Olympics only happen every 4 years. So, and right now, hopefully they stays in Olympics. Weightlifting is trying to sabotage themselves and tank the sport. But if they stay in the sport, that just means snatch and clean jerk, but it's not really Olympic weightlifting. Weightlifting happens, there's world championships every year. And you're like, well, who cares? This seems like you're just splitting hairs at this point. Because it is important when we talk about understanding, like this research article, for example, that was a misnamed type of training. Somebody is not paying attention could say, oh, snatch and clean and jerk may be good for those that are recovering from breast cancer treatment. Well, that's a definition problem. So what that person thinks is weightlifting, what I thought was weightlifting, was not what the authors had defined as weightlifting in the article. Big difference in training output. Okay, or in training schemes and training formats. All right, so weightlifting, one word sport, weightlifting with a space in it, that can mean like going to the Bronasium, doing biceps curls, which I'm a big fan of, but that's different than doing snatch and clean and jerk. One's a sport, one is descriptive of a type of activity. Okay, so again, these definitions matter. Powerlifting. Now, technically the sport of weightlifting, snatch and clean and jerk should be named powerlifting, and powerlifting, which is more like strength work, should be called weightlifting. That would have been, like the words are messed up, but that's the definitions are what they are at this point. Powerlifting is a sport of squat, bench, and deadlift, and the goal of powerlifting is to lift the most weights. It's not as athletic as weightlifting. It's certainly technical, and it's certainly abusive on the body. But many people get into powerlifting thinking that is weight training, or even bodybuilding with a space in there. And so they do powerlifting with these low rep type of training programs. They haven't done any sort of physique training, and this may be you, and I'm not being critical. I'm just saying this is why definitions matter. And so you've done all this powerlifting for, sets of 5, sets of 5, sets of 5, sets of 3, sets of 2, 5-3-1, which is a great program to get stronger, and but it has to be in phases. You can't just hammer heavy loads if you're a natural athlete. You just can't do that. And so I get this question, and I'll say frequently, and now it's in my, it's in the front of my mind. So it's probably not as frequent as like half the people I work with are doing this, but I see it happen. How's that? Is that people say, I've been doing powerlifting, yet I haven't seen any changes to my body. My body composition is the same. Well, it's because of the type of your training doing. You're powerlifting. In your mind, you're thinking powerlifting is weight training, bodybuilding with the space. You're doing powerlifting for the purpose of lifting heavy weights. Well, what will happen if you keep doing that heavier training is, one, you're going to get hurt because there's no breaks in what you're doing. There's no volume training at some point to accumulate volume to see any strength gains and to relieve your body from getting smashed with heavy weights all the time. And two, you're not going to see any physique changes because there's not enough volume to drive physique changes that are going to be significant within a band of training, like in a 3-month period. You're not going to see a whole lot of hypertrophy occur unless you're just genetically gifted from powerlifting type of training. So once you say this, the idea of powerlifting is to use the 3 classic lifts, okay, the squat, bench, and deadlift and their variants, and really spend a lot of your time on those things, and then just use the other exercises, supportive exercises, to build those 3 particular movements. Then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I thought that was what I was supposed to do to see physique changes. Can you see physique changes doing that? Sure, but the volume now is not correct. The exercise variation is not correct. And so you have a misnamed type of training. You're doing powerlifting, thinking that you're trying to change your physique, and in the end, you're training for a competition that is never going to happen. In fact, you had no intention of ever doing a competition. So there's this misunderstanding. Okay. Once we have the terms down, then we can start to write good programs to say, okay, I'm going to do 4 weeks of hypertrophy training or getting bigger muscles. So that would be akin to bodybuilding, not the sport per se, even though there's some crossover, but I'm just going to do some bodybuilding and appropriate volumes and loads that go along with that type of bodybuilding type of training, because I want to gain mass, lose body fat. And then I might decide, hey, I want to get strong. And so I'll do a strength training program, or if I want to use the classic lifts to do it, I'll do a powerlifting program. Or I might decide at that point, I'd like to do some Olympic style weightlifting. weightlifting the sport. I usually have to qualify it as Olympic style weightlifting still, because that, I have a weightlifting scholarship that I give away at the current team that I'm at university, and I get inquiries many times like, oh, I do this X in the biceps curls and whatever, right? We're talking about the wrong thing, okay? So I hope you find value in what I'm trying to say. It's not about splitting hairs. It's not trying to be, a jerk about these terms just to correct people. And I don't spend a lot of time correcting people, but I have to ask what they mean by these terms in order to understand what they're doing and where they should go next. So words matter, definitions matter, and something is seemingly as simple as moving some resistance around. And I didn't talk about commenting resistance and all these different things. There's lots of things that we could put under the umbrella of resistance training, lots of different modes of doing that. But we have to get these definitions down in order to be able to decide what is the best course of action to reach our training goals. And if you're a fitness professional, making sure you're communicating these words clearly and defining them clearly to people who you're training, coaching, is also very, very important. Hope you found this video useful. Like it if you like it. Leave a comment if you have any questions, or if there's something else you want to hear about, let me know. And of course, subscribe for more videos in the field of exercise, sports science, nutrition science. I don't know, but like 70 videos now on a variety of topics. Hope you're finding them valuable. I'll catch you in the next video.